Welcome to One Mind Zen. Tonight's Dharma talk is given by Robert Coho Epstein.
I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about going back to the roots of Buddhist meditation and breathing and mindfulness. Good old timey stuff. So just to start out, I'd just like to attest that I am personally a really big fan of breathing. I like it a lot. And in fact, I'm so into it that I try to do it rather continuously. It's not a coincidence that breathing, which is not only the source of the oxygen that keeps us alive, according to scientific theory, but is also a major regulator of the metabolism, has also been the key to meditation in any number of traditions. When we breathe rapidly, high up in the chest, our heart rate, blood pressure, cortisol, very bad chemical in the brain, and adrenaline levels go up, and anxiety and tension increase. This is not a good state to be in if you want to practice any kind of spiritual discipline, or even just do normal activities. When we breathe slowly and fully in the belly, those same factors go down, and we reach a more relaxed and a physically healthier state. Because breathing is a semi-autonomic activity, big vocabulary word, we can ignore the breath and still stay alive, perhaps not noticing how tense we are making ourselves, taking us further away from health, relaxation, and equanimity. And one effect of paying attention to the breath in meditation, and possibly one of the reasons why people meditate, is that we can encourage the breathing and thus the rest of the body and the mind, which relates strongly to the breath, to go in a more helpful and happier direction. So there's a little bit of a hint there of how mindfulness of the breathing might be useful to our physical and mental well-being. Because when we pay attention to the breath, we don't have to control it in order to say, wow, I'm really tense and I'm really breathing not in a good way, and help ourselves to relax and get into a better state. Now, the history of yoga is such that many practitioners have aimed for this kind of a healthy, balanced state, and the ultimate samadhi, a deep meditative absorption of ancient yoga meditation. The goal was really to reach a place of ultimate peace, a very peaceful and suffering-free a form of absorption. In a lot of cases, the deep absorption of yogic samadhi was a very peaceful state indeed, but it's a temporary one. Despite the discipline and difficulty of reaching such a state of sustained absorption and concentration. And when the yogi emerges, he might be quite refreshed, or she might be quite refreshed, but not have had a great increase in insight or wisdom. Absorptive, peaceful meditation does not necessarily lead to insight, although it's an advanced thing to do in its own right. As Werner Erhard, the founder of EST and the Forum, used to say, the problem with taking a vacation is that you're still there. And when you do deep yogic samadhi and everything is great for a little while, when you come back, you're not necessarily transformed from the way you were beforehand. The basic meditation teaching of the Buddha emphasized a balance between samadhi, the deep absorption and equilibrium achieved through concentrated meditation, and the awakening of the mind to insight, and ultimately awakening to the nature of reality and the self. Samadhi, or jhana, was the base, and the spacious awareness that was developed in this space was the quality that led to awakening. that quality, which was included in all of the Buddha's jhana states or samadhi states, was mindfulness. Mindfulness means that you don't just go into a deeper state of absorption and relaxation and get away from conscious awareness, but that you stay aware of the state that you're in and its properties the entire time. With the emphasis on awareness, the Buddha's yoga of deep meditation took on a different flavor than that of yoga. Not that there's anything wrong with yoga, or that there are no conscious yogis, there may very well be. But the Buddha's flavor that has been carried over and reflected in the special meditation branch of Buddhism known as Zen is one of awareness and insight, leading to awakening. The vehicle for absorption in both yoga and Buddhism, and the most popular object of meditation around the world, is the breath. And in terms of mindfulness, one may say the breathing process. Since it's so connected to everything within our system, our nervous system, our metabolism, our thoughts, our basic existence, it's sort of the perfect vehicle for awareness. If you become aware of the breathing and you work with the breathing, you're working with the whole self in a way. And even the Buddha noted that depending on the temperament and condition of the practitioner's nervous system, they could emphasize mindfulness at first, which is a more active, awake type of quality, or they could emphasize samatha, the relaxed and absorptive quality that leads to the jhanas or samadhi, the deeply absorbed meditation state. But ultimately, these two qualities have to balance with each other and come together to create a state of mind and body that's ripe for awakening to the nature of the self and reality. And you can't really have that ripened state without having a good balance of both qualities. In the Anapanasati Sutta, the Sutta of full mindfulness of the breathing, the Buddha gives an overall but fairly specific sketch of the meditation process as he taught it. Rather than simply start by going into deeper and deeper and slower breaths, which is key to developing samatha or relaxed absorption, and to get that to a point that approaches jhana or samadhi, he begins not with controlling the breath, but with being aware of it. Even before this, he says to begin by being mindful. He says the monk who is sitting down to meditate first brings mindfulness to the fore. In other words, the monk starts by being mindful before even focusing on the object of meditation. And that's kind of a good reminder for all of us when we say pay attention or be aware. Then he says, always mindful, he breathes in. Always mindful, he breathes out. So whatever is going to be performed with the breath, the monk begins and continues to attend to it with unbroken awareness and attention. Then next, the monk begins to pay attention to the actual qualities of the breathing process. So that is a further extension of mindful awareness of what is happening. He says, breathing in long, the monk discerns, I am breathing in long. Breathing in short, the monk discerns, I am breathing in short. So there's some attention to what the breath is doing, but only as an observation. One is an interested party to their own breathing process. And it's kind of interesting because we may be used to doing some breathing meditation or counting breath, which is very common in Zen. But just to give some advanced redundancy, because I may talk about this again later, it's really important and interesting to look at this very specific way of saying that I'm going to be aware, I'm going to be mindful the whole time, and I'm going to be aware of what's really going on the whole time. So we might count the breath and say, okay, I'm keeping the count going. 1, great. 2, 3, I'm doing a great job of counting. But I could possibly do that without really being aware of the breathing that I'm counting. And I'll emphasize this again a little later, but if you're just doing the exercise and you're not really paying attention, you're not developing awareness, and that doesn't lead to insight in the same way. So, but having this continuous mindfulness, which is fostered by being aware of what's really happening in the moment, and the breath being so intimate, is really an important activity. So the Buddha then goes on to talk about what is attended to in the order of execution of various states that accompany the breath. And I think this is very interesting to review because we don't always necessarily look at this kind of natural order. Doesn't mean it always happens this way or that it has to happen this way, but it's an interesting order to look at so that we have a sense of the way that meditation is planned to go or how it naturally goes in the Buddhist formulation. So in brief, it kind of goes like this: all the while attending the in and out breath with mindful attention, which is the base. Breathing in and out is sensitive to the entire body. In other words, one starts to be aware not only of the breathing, but of the entire body. So we're expanding the awareness to be aware of the entire kind of sensory or organic space that we occupy. Next, calming bodily fabrication. My sense of bodily fabrication are those things that attend the physical body, such as the quality of the breathing. So at this point, one's not only attending to the breath in the body, but one is calming the breathing and calming the body. And I would include physical sensations here as well, and physical states such as nervousness or jumpiness or paying attention to sensations. But whether sensations are part of this level or the next, that's going to be on the agenda next. So next, the monk becomes aware of or sensitive to mental fabrications. So one has established attention to the breath, attention to the physical body, along with sensations and physical states. And now one begins to become aware of what's going on in the mind, what's being created by the mind. And then once the monk becomes more aware and brings mindfulness to the mental fabrications, the monk again focuses on calming the mental fabrications, which would include thoughts and perceptions. After these things have ostensibly been accomplished to some extent, the monk begins to enter into the jhanas, the deeper concentrated states, which each have their own quality. And it's interesting, in Zen Samadhi, I don't know if you find this to be true or not, but we don't talk a lot about this quality or that quality, but it's more of an overall activity of going into meditation and then working on awareness or whatever object of meditation we've chosen, whether it is, and I'll mention these again later, so I like to always be redundant in advance. But whether you're working on counting breaths, or you're working on breathing in general, or you're working on global awareness, such as in Shikantaza, or you're working on cracking a Huatu with great doubt, or you're working on a succession of koans, which are opening up various aspects of your understanding or awareness and leading to various insights. Whatever those things you may be working on, they're all done with this kind of base in the breath and this sense of various things that may come up that attend those activities, those meditative activities. So after the one has established this kind of release to a certain extent, we've got a relaxed body and a relaxed mind, and we're paying attention to all of it with awareness, these qualities start to develop. So first comes rapture, which is kind of nice. Then pleasure and happiness of various kinds, which deepen in successive deeper states. And then there are some other qualities that are kind of interesting. They're qualities of mind. Such as discrimination and paying attention to, we actually do a kind of analysis in this calm and attentive state to understand what are the experiences that we're having in one state or another. And it's this discrimination that leads us to go out of one state and into a deeper state of release. After rapture and pleasure and mental fabrications are attended to again and then calmed, and the mind itself is attended to, steadied and released, the system is a little redundant too, as it goes to deeper levels. After that, the monk is able to attend to the four frames of reference. And here we re-encounter the body, feelings, mind, and mental qualities with more steadiness and clarity. And we focus on mental qualities of dispassion, cessation, and relinquishment, which are contemplated and lead to the establishment of deeper equanimity and greater letting go, which then allows us to develop the 7 factors for awakening, which are mindfulness, analysis of qualities, which you could also call discrimination, persistence, rapture not of the flesh, that's an interesting one, serenity, concentration, and equanimity. And these factors can be applied and developed with regard to all 4 frames of reference. And you may have had some experience with working with different frames of reference. They're really refer to physical sensations, working with emotions, working with thoughts and mental states. And you can take anything that comes up in any of these areas. You could have a pain, or you could have something coming up that's an uncomfortable emotion, or you could have a thought that is a kind of neurotic or diluted or difficult thought process. And you could apply your mindfulness to any one of those areas and develop the 7 factors for awakening with regard to that level of experience. And if this type of meditation that the Buddha describes in this Anapanasati Sutta is pursued to a high level of skillfulness, it results in the final result of the process, which is clear knowing and release. Clear knowing and release. And that's the final development of the practice. Now, this sutta does a lot of work in a short period of time, but it's a good overall outline of the qualities that one may encounter as meditation deepens and mindfulness attends to various physical and mental qualities and states. And it's the basis, along with its cousin, the Satipatthana Sutta, that goes into more detail about the 4 frames of reference. It's the foundation of all basic Buddhist meditation. Notice that throughout the various states and objects of awareness that are instigated in the stages of meditation, that mindful awareness and working with the qualities involved in a conscious way is always the work that's taking place. It's never about getting away and falling into a state of absorption that's just pleasant and great. I've temporarily resolved my unhappiness, even though it's going to come back. There's never just, hey, let's develop rapture, let's hang out. And in a lot of the Indian disciplines, people have done that. They've spent years just feeling good. And then later on, they were like, okay, what was I supposed to be working on? No, one is busy applying mindfulness and discernment and using it as a basis to develop each next stage of absorption, and then analyzing the qualities of the stage and seeing how there's still stress and tension in that stage, and then letting go more deeply to go into a deeper disposition of letting go. So there's a lot of discernment going on, and then releasing the former quality to go to the next quality until clear seeing and clear knowing of the nature of what is and what is being experienced finally results. And of course, insights and awakenings can come up at any point in any of this. And in Zen, it's not like, let's do it in order. It's like whatever comes up through the practice. There is one more statement from the beginning of the sutta which makes clear what the kind of work is here that's involved. It's a pretty simple statement that could be taken as introductory, but I think it says a lot about the nature of Buddhist practice, and that is the following. The new monks, being taught and instructed by the elder monks, were discerning grand successive distinctions. Grand successive distinctions. So I think that's another way of saying successive insights and awakenings through the practice. And that's really the point of the practice, rather than samadhi for its own sake. It points to the nature of our practice being one of discernment and realization, and it also suggests a path of successive insights that eventually lead to a fuller understanding. It also leads to what is often said in Zen, which is that the path is endless. There's always more continuing, subtle and deeper and more extended insights and awakenings that can be gained. And so the practice, unlike some other disciplines where they say, hey, I had an awakening experience, I'm cooked. Now I can just, go out and drink. Yay. Nope, the path just keeps on going and getting deeper. And in our Zen practice, this can come from any combination, as I redundantly explained before, of attentive breathing work, silent sitting with full attention to the moment, as in Shikantaza, attentive koan or huatu study, which is designed for discernment and insight. There's a lot more to derive from this sutta, the other more detailed sutta about mindfulness practice, the Satipatthana Sutta, and from the ways in which these practices have been utilized by successive generations of teachers, and also interesting how the qualities of these meditative forms have led to the offshoot traditions within Buddhism, such as Zen and Tibetan meditation. I will not talk about all of that tonight, although I hope to talk about it in more detail in subsequent talks. So tonight is really a pretty broad outline and a brief outline of the sutta to give an idea of how it works. But for tonight, I'd like to talk a little bit more about one of the major teachers in the Theravadan tradition who was doing this who was promoting this kind of practice. And in this case, one of my favorite cousinly traditions to the Zen schools, which is the Thai forest tradition in Theravada. One of the teachers whose practice I followed when I was previously doing mindfulness meditation is Mahasi Sayadaw. He focused on mindfulness of the body, which is discussed in the Anapanasati Sutta and Satipatthana Sutta, and is also discussed in one of my favorite suttas dedicated to mindfulness of the body, and which has a strong relationship to our kinhin or walking meditation practice, maybe the basis for it. And that is the Kaya Gata Sati Sutta. And have fun pronouncing that sometime. Kaya Gata Sati, MN 119, which means mindfulness immersed in the body, and which really points to our practice of embodiment in Zen. We don't run away and try to get out the third eye and go flying around and doing crazy stuff. We take whatever insight or energetics or anything that's gained through meditation and we funnel it back into the hara and back into the embodied sense of self. So the Kaya Gata Sati Sutta, which I really enjoy saying over and over again, in which we are famously advised to be fully aware of what our body is doing during all activities, standing, sitting, lying down, eating, going to the bathroom, and take full mindful stock of our embodied life. It's very grounding, and if practiced, keeps the awareness from flying away into mental fabrications and losing touch with reality. So it's a very nice sutta that I don't know if it's read as much as the other ones, but it's very good. And it's a very strong practice. We might think, well, I know when I'm standing and I know when I'm sitting, right? But I'm sitting right now, but while I've been talking for the last overly number of minutes, too many number of minutes, or however I'm supposed to put that, have I really been aware of sitting while I was sitting? Not really. I mean, I'm just now tuning into it and getting the sensations of sitting, And so this practice of Kaya Gata Sati, being aware of what the body is doing, it's at all times, it's very grounding and really takes a lot of attention. And I think it accords very nicely with Zen and Zen embodiment. So one of the reasons that I was attracted to Mahasi and the Mahasi method is that he adopted a similar focus to that of Zen. I already had some experience of Zen, and I like breathing in the hara, and Mahasi does that as well, by keeping mindful awareness on the belly while breathing in and out, whereas some of the other schools would have you breathing with attention on the nostrils. And that's what you traditionally do in Theravadan meditation. So one is aware of the rising and falling of the belly as one breathes, and this keeps the awareness grounded in the hara, the lower abdomen, where we focus in Zen. One thing I really liked about this meditation, and which has continued to influence me in Zen practice, is that we're taught, as I was redundantly saying earlier, to not only be generally aware of the breath as it comes in and out, which is very easy for us to fall into, but to actively pursue the sensation of the breath in the belly with each mini phase of the breath. So we don't just take a note and think to ourselves, okay, I'm inhaling now, or in Zen 1, whether if we're counting on the inhalation or counting on the exhalation, which we could do either one in Zen, but usually the exhalation. But okay, I'm inhaling now, and then continue to stay in the mind, but we attempt to take the mind and put it down into the belly. And as we note the rising of the belly, as we say in mindfulness practice, we are feeling and noting the sensation of the rising of the belly the entire time it's rising. So that mindfulness of the body is always there. And then noticing the sensation of the entire time that the belly is coming back to a relaxed state by noting falling. And in Zen, we have an equivalent of that if we're counting breath. It's been suggested, and I think it's a really good practice, that we don't just say, 1, okay, time to focus on 2, but that we go, inhale, let's say we're counting the exhalations, inhale and then go 1, the entire length of the breath, so that we're using it to stay connected to the sensation of the breathing the whole time we're counting and the whole time we're breathing. That develops a kind of awareness that's a lot greater than if we're just being generally attentive. So that develops full mindfulness of the breathing, which gives the breathing feedback and allows it to continue to smoothen and relax and lengthen, leading to deeper samadhi. The second thing that's good about it is that it develops a continuous state of mindful awareness, which builds on itself, and this can lead to discernment and insight. And the third thing is that it takes the mind out of the head space and grounds it in the body space. So this grounding leads to greater embodiment and the fuller mental, neural, and perceptual inhabiting of the bodily experience. Did I really say that? And more intimate knowledge of our interface with life as a living organism, which at least to some extent we are. So that's a lot about the breathing, and probably enough for now. And I hope that applies to our Zen practice and our Zen awareness as well. And thank you.